Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to the BFS Fishing Channel. And in this video, we're going to be tearing down and taking a closer look at the Purelure Silver Feather BFS reel. Now, I kind of have had a chance to take this out, and my casting impressions of this reel are very, very good. I do have some other reservations about it though, and so I want to do the teardown and I want to take a look at the internals of the reel because there's something about the quality control that isn't quite there. So we're gonna go ahead and open her up and then take a look, and then we'll see what we can see. Okay, so we've got our gloves on and we're gonna go ahead and start by looking at the handle knobs. Now, I am not the biggest fan of these pencil style handle knobs. I will say that they did a really good job making them very smooth and very comfortable to hold, but I just don't feel like when I'm retrieving, that there's really anything to kind of hold on to. And so for that reason, I am not a fan of these. And I've actually gone ahead and already swapped out the handle knobs on, wow, this is on here tight. The handle knobs on my Airlight, Lungzi Airlight, and I gotta say it's overall a much better handling experience. Okay, so the reason why that it's on there very tight is because there's actually a little O-ring on the handle cap. I don't know if you guys can see that or not, but that is a pretty nice touch. So kudos to them for that. So we're gonna go ahead and take this off, and then we're gonna see what we can see in terms of the handle shaft length. And this is just a Phillips, and likely it's going to be the standard handle knob bearing size, which is a 4x7x2.5. So we'll take one of these guys out, and that style sort of looks like a Shimano style handle knob, but we'll take a look. So the bearing size for the handle is 7, and inner diameter is going to be a 4, and width is going to be a 2.5. So yeah, this is going to be a 4x7x2.5 handle size, and the handle shaft itself is going to be a total length of about 26.5. There is a bit of a shoulder right here, and that shoulder length is going to be roughly 3.69. So I'm going to say that that is actually closer to a 3.5. So I do think that this is a Shimano sized handle knob shaft. Okay, we're going to go ahead and put that aside, and we're going to start getting into the remainder of the reel. Now it looks like, so DMK, I've got confirmation that DMK is the OEM for KastKing. And like KastKing on the reels like the Valiant Eagle 2, Kestrel, and Kestrel Elite, this reel is actually quite similar to those, but it also uses Torx screws. And I'm not really sure why these manufacturers are starting to move over to Torx screws. I do think that they're better than your standard Phillips, but they're kind of a pain in the butt. Because most people don't have access to Torx screws. But we'll go ahead and check the size, and then we'll get this cracked open. All right, so this looks to be maybe like a T8. Yeah, so it's going to be a T8. And so yesterday I did have to use a Torx screw, or the other day when I did the teardown for the Airlight, I did have to use a Torx bit to get the reel open. But there is the screw. There is the lock washer. And I've also noticed that more and more manufacturers are starting to use these bolts that thread into the main gear shaft, and that's actually kind of nice. There is a downside to these though. They're soft. They're made out of aluminum, and so if you over tighten it, I've actually sheared the bolt off of my flight feather. And this is a lefty Lucy, which is really nice to see, as opposed to the flight feather, my left-handed flight feather, which was a righty Lucy. Okay, so I do want to talk about, this is all going to come off real quick. I do want to talk about the handle. So this handle, the weave and the way that they manufactured it is really, really nice. And so I want to keep this handle and continue to use it. I just don't really like the handle knobs. And so I do want to look into, swapping those out for something else. But the weave on it is really tight. It is a very, very rigid carbon fiber handle. It has no torsion. There's no twist in it. I mean, there's a little bit, but there's not very much. probably as much as you'd see in something like an aluminum handle. But this is very well made. I was very impressed by this handle. Okay, so the star drag itself is a carbon fiber star drag. I don't know, it's not the most impressive style to me, but it works, so great. All right, so there's a spring right there, and we've got our star drag nut. So we're going to go ahead and take that off, and that is a righty-loosey because this is a left-handed reel. Go set that aside there. You're going to get a thick flat washer, and the darker side of this, because there's two colors. There's a brownish color right there, and then a darker gray. The gray is going to be out towards the handle. And then it looks like you've got two spring washers, which are opposing each other. Very nice to see that, because sometimes manufacturers actually install them incorrectly. Then we had two washers, two flat washers. One is thicker than the other, and if I'm not mistaken, the thin one is next to the bearing, and the thicker one is actually out towards the handle. So there are those. And then it looks like the handle shaft or the main shaft bearing just fell out as well. So that's okay. We're going to take a look at the spool tension knob. And this kind feels like it gets very tight and then it gets loose. So there is an O-ring on that, which is nice to keep out water. And you can see the clicker mechanism on the inside. It is that little tiny white tab right there. And let's see if I can't. Yeah, so if you move that white tab around, or if you move the white tab that's actually supposed to be stationary, and then the knob itself turns, the clicker mechanism is on the inside. I'm just going to go ahead and set that aside there. And then we'll take a look at our spool tension shaft, which is a very short one. So we can set that aside there. And then you can see the pinion. Okay, so let's go ahead and take off the side plate. Now, I do want to talk about the braking system on this because it does work. It doesn't work. It's not as dynamic as some other brakes out there. And the reel initially does feel very overbraked. And it's a little bit confusing to me because the reel does seem like it's overbraked. Like the free spool is non-existent. But when you take it out to cast, it is an absolute pleasure to cast. But anyways, looking at the braking system, the way it works is there's a ring of magnets, that dark black ring on the outside. That is the ring of magnets. And that actually will move. I don't know if you guys can see that at all, but it will move about maybe a millimeter or so. So it's not super dynamic, but it does move. One thing to note is that in order to access your side plate bearing, you do need to remove this little plate here. And so I'm going to go ahead and do that. So you do need a smaller torque spit for that. So far we've used a T8. This is the T8 for the handle. All right, so the other size that you need is going to be a T6 if you want to take off the side plate. And so there's 3 screws here. There's 1, 2, and 3 right there. And we're going to go ahead and remove those, which is not too difficult. And when I'm removing them, I'm keeping my thumb on this little plate here that has the screws in it, just in case there are springs. And these are very, very tiny screws. So these are the 3 screws that cover, and it does feel like there's something spring-loaded in there. So I'm taking off very slowly. Okay, so there's the cover plate. And then here inside, it does look like there's a spring. So I'm gonna go ahead and remove that. And then underneath, so this just pops out, this whole entire assembly. And you can kind of see buried inside of there under this plastic part that the spool tension bearing is there. I'm wondering if this whole entire assembly needs to be removed instead of doing what I did. But, that's why this video is here. So I'm just going to go ahead and see if removing this brown ring, which I believe holds the entire brake assembly itself, if removing this will give you access. I hope that it doesn't completely self-destruct. Okay. Wow, so they make it very, very difficult to get to this, and it looks like there is a whole bunch of the assembly that just came apart. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this back. So there is a ring and it is keyed. It has little tabs on it and it is keyed to the inner ring there. Okay, so that really didn't solve anything because what we've got is that brake assembly and all of that right there. And then these screws go to this, and this is what houses the side plate bearing. So really not very ideal. And I don't want to really go any further right now, although I may. Yeah. Okay, so I had planned on replacing the bearing, and I still may do it. I just need to most likely take off this plate in the back because, and when you do that, you got to be careful because it looks like there are springs underneath. So I may just go ahead and do that right now. If we're tearing down the entire thing, might as well. So you guys can have a chance to see. They went through some really great lengths to make this the way it is. Okay, so there are 3 springs. So I'm going to take this plate off very carefully. And it is also, it's directional. So there's 3 springs there. And I'm assuming with those plates, or three springs gone, that this outer plate comes off. Yeah. So this is how you access this is how you access your side plate bearing. It is a royal pain in the butt. And it is just held in there by those clips. So I'm not going to bother putting this this whole assembly back together right now. But you guys get the idea of what you have to do to access this bearing in the side plate. Not very fun, but you know, I guess that's what they did to make this the quote-unquote world's lightest reel right now as of December 2023. Okay, let's go ahead and start getting into the remainder of the reel itself. And I'm trying to locate where all of the screws are. And I do see one on the interior with an access point. And unfortunately, I don't have a dedicated Torx, long shaft Torx screwdriver. And so I'm just going to use this and access it from the side, which, you know, if you do that, you do run the risk of kind of stripping that screw. So just be really careful, take it slowly, and then go ahead and take that screw out that way. And there's no screws hidden underneath the clutch button, which is nice, but it does look like there's 1, 2, so there's 3 on the inner side of the reel, and then there's 1 on the outer plate. So I'm gonna go ahead and take off these 2 inside, and I wonder if they're different lengths, which is always a possibility. Hopefully they're not, because that makes everything a lot simpler. And it does look like they're very similar so far. And so these screws, you can tell that they're, you know, screws that actually dig into carbon fiber because their thread is a lot coarser than what you would see if there was a screw that was going into a metal part. So they're all the same type of screw, so that's nice. Makes things very easy. And with that, this main gear cover should pop off unless I'm missing another screw, which I don't think I am. Yeah, no other screws. So this will come off right now. All right. Okay. So there we go. And let's take a look at the inside. So that's a nice touch. They are using a screw to retain the anti-reverse bearing, and this anti-reverse bearing sleeve is also keyed. So that's also very nice because when this anti-reverse sleeve is actually keyed, it helps to keep the handle kind of stationary. But for some reason, I was getting a little bit of slop in the handle itself. So I'm not really sure why that's the case. But it doesn't look like there's an overabundance of grease, which is very, very nice. And let me see if this... does not feel like the anti-reverse bearing, you know, moves a whole bunch, if at all. I'm going to snug up that screw just a little bit. You shouldn't do it too much because this screw is biting into carbon fiber. And if you over tighten it, you can strip the carbon fiber. So you don't want to tighten screws that are biting into some kind of resin material, which is basically carbon fiber, too much, because then you'll strip out that screw hole, which is not good. Okay, so let's take a look at the main gear itself, and what I'm noticing is, I'm going to set this down right here and take off the anti-reverse ratchet cog. So what I'm noticing is that this main gear shaft is very, very ported. So that's nice to see. That helps them reduce that weight. The construction is very simple. I don't see any blue grease, which is a plus in my opinion. I don't really like seeing blue grease at all. A lot of manufacturers are moving to this style of drag clicker mechanism. It's not my favorite style, and so far, the only reel that has this style drag clicker mechanism that sounds good, at least to my ears, is going to be the Air Light. I don't know how they tune theirs, but theirs actually sounds very, very good. You will see a Carbon Tex drag washer, and it does look greased, which is nice to see, because a lot of times with reels, I don't see that they're greased at all. They're actually dry. And there should be another Carbon Tex drag washer underneath this drag clicker mechanism, which that was the anti-reverse one. It does look like there is. Interestingly enough, that one, don't know that this one is greased. If it is, it's very lightly greased. It doesn't look greased at all. So when I put this reel back together, I may put a very light coating of grease on the main gear. The main gear is a little bit thin. It doesn't look like the teeth are very, there's a lot of them. So it looks like it's a bit of a coarser tooth pattern. And so it is aluminum and it is plated. So that's kind of nice to see. But let's go ahead and take a look at the pinion and the pinion yoke. Pinion yoke has a little metal tab there, and the machining on this pinion does look pretty good. I don't see any irregularities. I don't see any sloppy machining at all. Everything looks pretty uniform, very nicely cut. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put the pinion down there. And then let's go ahead and take a look at what's underneath this main gear shaft. You'll have to excuse me, I'm a little jittery today. I just had a coffee. But okay, so it's just held in by 2 Phillips screws, and it should just pop out, which it does. Okay. And so it is shimmed. You can see that copper washer underneath there, but I wonder if it could be shimmed a little bit better, because there is just the tiniest bit of movement. And so in order to shim it, what I would do is I'd probably take off this bearing and then try to add another washer underneath there, a very, very thin washer, maybe go with something like a 0.1 millimeter washer. But I'm going to put this aside here, and yeah, we know that this is an 11+1 ball bearing reel. And so on this side, there's not going to be a ball bearing, and there is going to be a ball bearing at the worm gear itself. So the internals look pretty good to me. I mean, there's nothing really glaring that, I can see that was done poorly or anything like that. Everything looks fairly well made. I have no idea why, when I first handled the reel and was retrieving it or working on the retrieve, that it felt so gritty. But since then, the grittiness has kind of gone away, and everything looks fairly well built. I will say I'll probably go ahead and try to shim this a little bit better, because the way that this reel casts and the way that it performs, it's really, really good. I don't quite agree with the asking price. $130 something is quite a bit of money to pay for a reel like this. And I don't really think that the 119 gram all up weight of the reel itself is something that's like super beneficial. Reels that are in like the 130, 140 gram range are also very lightweight, and it's kind of almost imperceivable to tell the difference between the weights themselves, unless you're, I guess, holding the holding your setup for like long hours during the day. But anyways, that's the reel, and that's how it looks like on the inside. I think this side plate design is a little bit of a letdown, especially if you want to go ahead and change out your side plate bearing. The other thing is that this spool bearing, it does come off, but I did flush mine, and I didn't find that it actually, rotated any better than it did when it was not flushed. And so I'm really curious as to what kind of bearing this is, because it's a blue seal, and I've never seen that in a reel before. But anyways, that's going to be it for this video, guys. What did you think? Are you interested in this reel? It's $130 some odd right now. I did ask them, and it doesn't seem like they're going to put it on sale again anytime soon. So if you're wanting this reel, I don't know, maybe wait for you got to wait for a bit if you want to get it on sale. But anyways, that's going to do it for this video. If you liked the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it, you can go ahead and give it a thumbs down. If you haven't subscribed, please consider subscribing. This is the kind of video that I make on this channel. I do teardowns, I do casting comparisons, casting performance videos, and I also do unboxing and impression videos as well. So yeah, if you like this kind of content, please consider subscribing. It really helps the channel grow. And with that being said, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.